Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Perkenalkan, nama saya Nata Sutisna. Saya Ketua IB untuk kawasan Timur Tengah dan Afrika, dan saat ini sedang di Tunisia, Afrika Utara. Pada kesempatan kali ini, kita semua sedang berada dalam acara webinar internasional Ide Dunia dengan tema masa depan digitalisasi, bagaimana teknologi merespon manajemen krisis saat ini yang sedang melanda seluruh negara di dunia. Adapun untuk susunan acara pada acara kali ini, yang pertama adalah pembukaan, yang kedua adalah acara inti, yang ketiga adalah sesi tanya jawab, yang keempat adalah foto bersama, dan yang kelima adalah penutup.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to ID Dunia's international webinar on the future of digitalization, how technology responds to today's crisis management. My name is Verily Ananda, and I'll be your English host for today's event. Thank you all so much for coming. Today, ID Dunia is bringing different insights from our previous events, something that we all should be aware of, something that youth in Indonesia and other ASEAN countries should be aware of, and that is how technology is shaping our everyday lives and how this certain field should be a concern to us developing countries, and also how some technology innovations can cause foreign political disruptions. And most importantly, how does technology cope up with the current issues we face today? Because of this, we are bringing you our amazing keynote speakers from around the world. They are all specialized in international relations and technological development. Please welcome Alya Nurshabrina, Annisa Salim, Annelieke, Mooij, and Effendy Zulkifly. To all participants, we would like to request you to mute your audio and close your video camera during the session. And to all the keynote speakers, please open your video camera at all times and only unmute yourselves when you start your discussions. Thank you.
Oke, untuk acara yang pertama, yaitu pembukaan, mari kita buka acara ini dengan niat kebaikan, agar kita senantiasa berada dalam kebaikan. Yang kedua adalah acara inti, yaitu penyampaian dari para pemateri. Bagi rekan-rekan peserta, diharapkan untuk mematikan video dan mematikan suaranya. Adapun untuk para pemateri, dengan hormat untuk selalu menghidupkan kameranya, adapun mematikan suaranya ketika sedang tidak menyampaikan materinya. Pemateri pertama adalah Miss Alya Nurshabrina, pemateri yang kedua adalah Miss Annisa Salim, pemateri yang ketiga adalah Miss Annelieke, dan pemateri yang keempat adalah Mr. Effendy Zulkifly.
Before we start our event, I will give you the rundown of the event first. The event will start with discussions from each keynote speakers. Each keynote speaker will have 10-minute duration of talk, then followed by a Q&A session in which our dear participants can engage and ask our keynote speaker by clicking on the raise hand button on the Zoom panel. Transitioning to closing, we'll have a screenshot session and followed by a closing session. For our first speaker, please welcome Alya Nurshabrina. She is known as Miss World Year 2018 and Indonesian International Relations Ambassador. Alya, you may start. The floor is yours.
Okay, hello everyone. I would like to say welcome and nice to meet you all via this virtual webinar. Welcome again to hand some of my thoughts about the technological opportunities and also perhaps challenges that we may face currently in today's pandemic. And I would like to face this issue on two things. First of all is how I personally have taken part on this experience, and number two is on the challenges that I have seen from my work and from my day-to-day living scenarios and so on. So the first part is how have I taken part in this? I would like to introduce again that my role here is as Miss Indonesia 2018. Yes, I competed in Miss World back in 2018. However, the title lasts forever. And fortunately enough, I was lucky enough to still work within the entertainment industry and I'm continuing in one of Indonesia's biggest TV channel winners. And the reality show itself is more or less like a CSR. It's more or less every episode we give back to society, and there's just cameras that follow us around and following us, whether what kind of educational activities that we're going through and what kind of charity that we're going through that day and so on. Now, we face a lot of difficulty because last year we can do in a lot of places, including in mountains, in villages, and so on. But after the pandemic, we had to halt the shootings because, well, we cannot meet a lot of people. And once that a lot of the operationals are allowed again, we can only shoot inside buildings, which is inside the TV channel buildings, the studios. And there's not a lot that we can do to give back to society. So we alter our perspectives, and how we did is that we approach doctors, especially doctor specialists specializing. It's been a while since I have used English, but we approach doctors specializing in lungs and also viruses, and we have asked them to join our show and spread the awareness and information about COVID-19 and what should we do on a day-to-day basis, and what should we do to prevent the virus from infecting us, and so on. So there were a couple of episodes about that, and also on other episodes we also give back in terms of giving masks, and also like, for example, giving charity to people affected by the COVID. For example, people like Super Gojek, I don't know how to put it in English, but drivers, online drivers. I think in other countries those are like Uber drivers or Uber Eat drivers. Those people, they still need to follow our orders in the applications and give us our food and our items and so on. And it's very hard and risky because they are very open to any contamination out there. So there's a couple of episodes in the reality show that we also help them. And for as far as I can do, that's what I've taken part into, helping others during this crisis. And as much as I've said I've done my part, still I'm a little bit disappointed because I wish I could have done more. I really do. And it's still confusing to me on how can I do more and how can I help people more when physical contact is something that has become a now. So I think because we are triggered to discuss about the many ways we can calibrate in this position, how we can help others without physical contact. I mean, for years we are so accustomed on helping people in charity with, for example, visiting places and visiting villages and visiting just physical contact right away, right? So in terms of charity, there's just a lot of things that need adjustments, and I just wish I could have done more. So for the second part is further challenges. I think that economical or financial challenges is one of some of the biggest threats that we all face, regardless of what industry that we are working in. Me, I personally work in entertainment industry, but any industry, any worker right now is affected. A lot of people, a lot of my family members are laid off, cut from work, or I guess it's quite safe to say that working from home is actually a luxury because not everyone can work from home, including me. Not all the time. In normal times, not every time I can get work. It's very client based and very seasonal. And now after the pandemic, it's more dangerous for my savings because I don't know if I can work in the future again if there's not a lot of shootings and so on. So a lot of people in the entertainment industry and artists like singers and musicians and painters, for example, illustrators. They're facing a lot of challenges on how can we make money when our source of income is entertaining people, making people happy, and in actually interacting with them. But now in the pandemic, we cannot interact with them, right? So how? So there's a lot of confusion, and I think it would be best if the government or organizations can provide free courses or free education packages to start on how to start business on their own. So people in a lot of industries, like in the entertainment industry, when they don't work, they can actually start working from home. And I'm not talking about multi-level marketing. I'm talking about, for example, them building new skills so that they can make their own money from home. For example, starting their own food business at home, or starting like a gardening, or selling their own cactus, for example, and selling it via internet. So it would be best if a lot of organizations and a lot of government bodies can help on giving those kind of free education and like free courses to build those kind of skills. And yeah, and maybe even subsidies or other kind of economical support would be awesome, because I'm just sad to see a lot of my friends in this industry, my coworkers, not getting a lot of work and not having any savings at all. So that's that kind of challenges and kind of technological challenges that we can think about. What if there's a lot of application development for our phones, where we can like download a skill set or download a talent course, and then within 1 or 2 weeks we can actually have a certificate, and then we can apply and make our own business from it. That kind of stuff could be very helpful right now during the pandemic, especially for us that we don't have work at all. Yeah, and I think that's all from my point of view. If there are others who would like to give questions or like to add on further, is so welcome. And any kind of critiques is also welcome. I would love to know and learn more. Yeah, if I have more time, then I would like to give it back to the host.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your speech, Alya. Now let us move on to our next keynote speaker, someone who shares similar field as Alya in international relations, but at the same time, she also specializes on the development of technology for the United Nations. Please welcome Annisa Salim. She is a representative for the Republic of Indonesia in the United Nations Development Program that focuses on the technology impact on the development of human resources. Nor, you may start. The floor is yours.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Good evening from Indonesia. My name is Annisa. I'm from Indonesia, especially I live in Borneo Island. So this is my pleasure to participate in international webinar talking about how technology responds crisis management. So let's start. As we know it that the pandemic COVID-19 has affected social and political and also economy. And then it is also tend to change our habit that we usually to doing activity by the directly or the face to face. But at the moment, we must doing our activity by technology or simply like the P2PL platform. As we know it that P2PL could be make our activity more easy because we need to prevent COVID-19, right? So, but the most very important is about in Indonesia, most of the population have not good literacy in technology and internet. That is our problem and could be social inequality, right? Like the public service, like education, and also other service. And previously, I have the research about the literacy technology and internet in Indonesia. So according data by the Ministry of the Communication and Informatics that emphasize only 20% the people in Indonesia having a good literacy in technology and internet. So I think this is the problem when the COVID-19 suddenly coming and then happening in Indonesia. So I think the most very important is about how the government could be facilitate infrastructure and innovation more quality and more inclusive, because we have more than 200 million citizens in Indonesia, and then most of the people living in the rural areas. So that is the problem, how we can preparing the next forward after the pandemic COVID-19. So in the furthermore, we have the same problem like small business. As we know it, that only 10%, like 20% who have unbankable. This indicates that our business enterprise still low minimum literacy. I mean, like digital finance. So I think that we need to have a strong empowerment before we start to in early new era. That is for me. So anyone to question?
We're going to put the questions in the Q&A session. Is that okay?
Okay. So,
all right.
okay. So, however, not all of Indonesian will have a strong mastering in technology and the internet. So that I think that this is our challenge, because the most of the people still living in the developing infrastructure, especially is Indonesia, right? So we still have the poor community, and then we need to strong and then accompanying the people who need to infrastructure and the facility digital innovation before we start to bureaucracy system. Because I believe that in the next hour, Indonesian people or globally will change habit to be more productive in technology by P2PL platform, I guess. So I think that's my session. So the next is
Okay. All right, that couldn't be more true, Nor. I'm sure there will be lots of questions raised later about this. Thank you so much. All right, for our next speaker, please welcome someone from the law field. Yes, she's chair and co-founder of Dublin Law and Politics Review from Dublin, Ireland. Please welcome the one and only Annelieke. Annelieke, you may start. The floor is yours.
So thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here. And I actually prepared a little bit of a PowerPoint. So if the host could please enable me to share my screen, I could share that PowerPoint with you.
Okay, is it okay now?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Okay, lovely. So it's lovely to be here. And indeed, I'm the chair of the Dublin Law and Politics Review. So today I'll be talking to you a little bit more practically about event management 2.0, as I like to call it. So I'm going to be talking a little bit, is COVID-19 a blessing in disguise when it comes to technology? Some of the advantages, some of the challenges, and my personal 10 commandments for any of you who'd like to manage events or use technology in order to create events. So first of all, yes, I'm the chair of the Dublin Law and Politics Review. We are a society that promotes interdisciplinary discussion of legal political issues that play in society. I am also a PhD candidate at the School of Law and Government at Dublin City University, and I'm a legal counsel for a firm. But first of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about COVID-19 as a blessing in disguise. COVID-19 did indeed, and the pandemic, have very serious economic and social side effects, and they are very serious. But when it comes to technology, COVID-19 is actually a blessing in disguise, because people are forced to accept technology. We didn't see this before, but people work a lot more from home. We have a lot more digital meetings, such as this webinar. It's a lovely discussion. Would we have had it without the pandemic? Probably not, because people were not as accepting of it. So in that sense, because we are forced to use technology, we also start accepting it, and it brings a lot of advantages. And what we see as well is we are slowly moving from replacing physical events to exploring digital events. So I'll get more into that. But what I mean with that is technology, especially in the beginning of the lockdown, was used as a replacement for an event that would otherwise be held physically, so actually in live action. That is not wrong. But what we see more now is that technology offers a lot of features. We can do a lot of great things with technology. So we're slowly starting to explore what we can do with digital events. And that's a very good thing. So what kind of events can you think of when using technologies? Webinars such as this, where everyone can join. You can also think of starting a podcast channel, coffee meetings, discussion groups, meet and greets with interesting people or with people from your field, watch parties, all starting to watch a movie or a documentary together and discussing this online. So there are lots and lots of opportunities and possibilities with technology that we didn't really use as much before. Can we, however, replace social events? Well, yes and no. Yes, you can have social events using technology, but we can't truly replace social events. As humans, we need actual physical contact. We need to be in the same room sometimes. As simple as when you're feeling down, you'd like a hug from your best friend or your parents. You'd want to be close with people. So we cannot replace that. But we can do a lot of things to prevent loneliness, to encourage social discussion and social meetings. The key to this is you have to announce it as such. So a social event is very difficult for some people because you have to switch on your camera. But this is something that you should announce, and it works quite well. But always keep it small scale. So it's very difficult to have a discussion group with 200 people in the same room. Think about it. If you're having a cocktail party, for example, you're not going to talk to all 200 people at the same time if they're there. You're going to talk to a group of about 5 people. So always make sure that's either small scale or put people in breakout rooms. Make sure that they're in small groups where they can actually have a social chat. But always make sure to have a moderator, because there are dangers to technology and online meetings, which is that some people tend to abuse it in the wrong way. So that's why you need a few moderators to make sure that everyone feels happy. Then it's very important to choose the right platform. So Skype is one that's most used by a lot of people. Why? Because we had it before, because we're already used to it. Now, that's a good thing, because we have it, we know how to use it, it's easy. There's not a lot of barriers to overcome. A negative is that it's very messy. So we've organized one webinar through Skype, and it was a complete mess, because Skype does not automatically phase into the person who speaks. So that is a disadvantage, and I cannot recommend it for big groups. Zoom, on the other hand, what we use right now, is also very easy to use. It's very suitable for webinars such as this. It has a lot of cool features, like before the audience came in, you have a waiting room so that you can establish your panel and then slowly and smoothly transit into the actual webinar. There's a lot of cool features. Make use of them. A disadvantage is that not everyone has Zoom or wants to use it. So more and more people are using Zoom, but it's not available in all countries. And especially in the beginning, it had a few technical issues. So it had a lot of bugs. That may left a little bit of a dark stigma. So not everyone wants to use it, even though a lot of bugs have been fixed. Then another option to pursue is StreamYard, or anything like StreamYard. What you can do with this is you could stream it directly onto a YouTube page or onto Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, basically anything. It's very nice because you can include not just up to 200 or 300 people, your Zoom limit, but you can include millions and millions of people because they can all respond either through Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook. So it has a lot of cool things, and you can really combine having a big audience. The con of this is that it's risky because you're direct streaming. You do not know what can go wrong on all sets of things. So that is a con, and I would only recommend using this tool when you actually have a little bit of experience hosting such webinars. Now, the advantages, as I said, of technology, there are many of them. So first of all, it's cheap. Zoom, it's free to use unless you want to go pro. But other than that, you can do a lot of things with the free option. There's a wider possibility of speakers. If we just look at this webinar, I'm very excited to join, but most likely I could not have joined if this was actually held in Indonesia. I'm coming to you from Dublin, and unfortunately Indonesia is a 25-hour flight, so probably couldn't have made it. Now with Zoom or with other technologies, you can actually make it, because all you need to do is switch on your laptop or any device that you use. The same goes for audience. Your audience can be coming in from everywhere. There are lots of cool features that you can use and facilitate, such as waiting rooms, discussion rooms, all sorts of things. And not only can you have a wider audience, it's also very easy for the audience to join. So we've all had it that we were invited to a seminar. It was somewhere lovely, lovely topic, but it was in the evening, and you started thinking, well, here in Dublin, most of the time, well, it's pouring rain. I have to go through the rain, I'll get soaking wet, I'll be freezing in the seminar, then I still have to get back, and you decide, never mind. With technology, you don't have to go out through the rain. You can just switch on your computer and you're there. So it's very easy to join as well. There are very low limits to joining. Now this also brings challenges. I'm coming to you from Dublin, and we've organized quite a few events surrounding Ireland and the wider area of Europe. Even within Ireland, we have huge problems with stable internet, especially from the countryside. There's not always good enough quality internet available for people to actually use and get access to these type of webinars, because you need a good one. Then there is the lack of social interaction. So when you go to a seminar, there's also a little bit of social interaction before and after. That's usually less with a webinar. It's more about asking your questions, then you leave. There's also a huge supply of webinars, so you need to stand out. People also have a tendency to forget because it's so easy. You don't jot it down in your diary as much you would a seminar. Anonymity makes it easier to misbehave. People try and be funny. And of course, be careful of time zones. First, on your poster, make sure that it's there, it's easy, and people can directly access and know which time zone it is, and it's not taking place in the middle of the night for your prime audience. So what do you do about these challenges? Well, for the lack of stable internet, also use a platform that allows dialing in. For example, both Zoom and Skype, you can actually call in. And make sure you have 2 or more hosts. What I mean by that is if you only have one host and their internet fails, meeting is gone. Lack of social interactions. Well, use features like the breakout rooms, or have another meeting afterwards via Zoom that you really encourage people to talk to each other just in a social setting and switch on their cameras. Huge supply of webinars. Make sure yours is short, accessible, and interesting. Short doesn't have to be under an hour, but make sure it doesn't drag all day, or that at the very least it's interesting enough for people to really attend. People have a tendency to forget. Send reminders, 24 hours plus an hour in advance. Anonymity makes it easier to misbehave. Make sure you have platform managers. Make sure that people from your team are trying to spot, okay, who is misbehaving, who is not, and kick them out if necessary. So,
sorry, Annelieke, you have 1 minute left.
Okay, I'm almost done. So what I mean with that is we had a very successful webinar. We had 5 speakers of 4 nationalities, over 100 attendants, and we cooperated with another society to make sure that there was enough audience and that enough people were reached. So last but certainly not least, my 10 commandments. Safety, make sure you use a safe platform. But safety, second of all, look to your surroundings. Make sure you have no sensitive information in the background. Always have a platform manager. Make sure you know the platform before you host others. So make sure you're familiar. Be on time. Keep the platform easy. Always get consent for recording, because otherwise you're in big trouble with data protection management. Keep an eye on the clock. And have 2 or more hosts and just have fun. Because that's the thing. Have fun with it. I've included a few links if you want to get more examples of what to do or what not to do. And that was my presentation for today.
All right, thank you so much, Annelieke. If I may ask, from your perspective, what are some of the dangers most people face when it comes to the rights of users these days, such as data privacy, privacy protections, and all that? From your law backgrounds, what do you have in mind?
So we operate mainly in Europe. So we're located in Ireland. So for us, it's the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulations Directive. Sorry. What is an issue is, first of all, you need to talk to your speakers who you're hosting. Make sure that they're okay with being recorded and know that they're being published and where they're being published, in what context. And when people ask questions, what we do, and this is why we don't do a lot of live streamings, is edit out their face, edit out their voice, because both face and voice and their last name, especially the combination first last name, is something that falls under your data protection, under your privacy, and you really need explicit consent to share that information.
All right. Thank you so much, Annelieke. That's quite a deep talk from someone with a law background. Before we move on to our last keynote speaker, for those of you who have questions, please prepare your questions and click on the raise hand button. And if you find any difficulties, please talk to our ID Dunia staff to help you with your questions on chat column. Okay, I'm sure the international laws have said so many important parts, and I'm sure our last keynote speaker have lots of great ideas in his mind. Please welcome the CEO of Blockworq and co-founder of World Robotics and IoT Association, Arya from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. He is also the founder of the Global Association of Blockchain Community, author of 2 books, The Techno Revolution, Blockchain Manual 101, and ABCDs that are changing the world. Now he actively promoting the value of Internet of Things, IoT, robotics for education, blockchain, and emerging technologies that involving the development of blockchain as a service, BaaS, industrial IoT, and emerging technologies for academic. Professor Effendy Zulkifly. Mr. Zulkifly, you may start. The floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum and a very good morning, afternoon, evening, good night to everyone all around the world. Thank you to the organizer for having me here, and I'm so honored to be part of this ecosystem of Idea Dunia. And actually, I don't have any points to talk because all the remarkable speakers already covered all my points. Actually, it's a very good point from you guys, from Annisa, Alya, and Anne. But let me touch a little bit perspective from the technology perspective. As a technologist, as a technocrat, I would like to share with you guys about how technology can combat the crisis, and how the crisis management can be controlled, can be manageable by using technology. In Malaysia, we call it as a MCO, Movement Control Order. Is a quite, we can say that a part of a soft lockdown. Everybody was locked down in the house, in the home, and we could not go out because of some regulation was made by our government. We only could go outside if you want to have something like basic needs only. But we could not go to work. We could not have a business like Alya mentioned just now. A lot of activities of economy, activities on business and small factories could not be operated that time for almost 3 months. I think around 2 months, actually, 8 weeks. And in Malaysia, government already announced that because of the lockdown, government actually lost for almost 1 billion USD. The loss because of we call it as a partial lockdown. So please let me, before I discuss more on my points about how technology on the crisis management, let me give some definition of technology. When we talk about technology, it's about the application of scientific knowledge for practical purposes, especially in industry. So we can say that how we can use machinery, equipment developed from the application of scientific knowledge. And I would like to also touch the definition of a crisis management. Crisis management is the application of strategies designed designed to help an organization deal with a sudden and significant negative event. I think Anne already covered about that very with a very good points and explanation. And also, a crisis can occur as a result of an unpredictable event or an unforeseeable consequence of some event that had been considered as a potential risk. So I would like to share from the perspective of technologies in Asia, for example, the best example when we discuss about this kind of a crisis management. Crisis can be anything, right? Crisis can be maybe something like disaster because of tsunami, disaster because of haze, disaster by technology problem, hacking to the banks, hacking to the hospital, and the worst happened for in 100 years is a pandemic of a COVID. What happened when we have a pandemic of a COVID? Some of the countries were not ready. Some of countries are so relaxed. Sometimes we can see countries like maybe like USA, some European countries because of the name of the movement of freedom, for example. But countries like China, countries like Taiwan, countries like South Korea did something very extensive control on the movement, on the data. But I think I would like to see from the perspective technology first, then we can touch a little bit on something on human freedom movement, freedoms of expression, freedom of movement on the crisis situation. For example, guys, we can. I would like to share a little bit on how Asia is using tech to tackle COVID. For example, emerging technologies are being deployed all across Asia to fight the coronavirus outbreak. For example, China, they're using robots to disinfect hospitals and deliver medical supply. In Singapore, they use government data to detail mapping of the outbreak. And also same goes to South Korea. The authorities are tracking any potential carriers using cell phone and also satellite technology. And this thing, I think, also actually a little bit questions has been raised as to how this innovative data may affect of our privacy. But it's another things that we need to discuss. And of course, countries in China, they use this kind of disinfecting drones, talking robots, how AI that can scan thousands of medical images in the flash. Like me, actually, we try to bring to our government to use AI camera to do something like detection to the movement of the people who affected on the COVID. Example, the guys, I mean, the foreigners or the people, the Malaysian who came back from outside, from out of Malaysia, they came to Malaysia, they need to be monitored. So we in Malaysia, actually, we produce so-called corona, people don't know that coronatracker.com came from Malaysia, actually. So there are 2,000 of big data people, data scientists, combined in one platform of corona tracker apps to have the data, to study the movement, to study the genome, to study the what you call the potential movements of the people that suspected to be in the carriers. And this corona tracker was recognized by WHO because it's very effective and very useful for the government to do some checking and monitoring. And also in Singapore, they have a government, the government launched some app called Trace Together, because they use something like apps that use Bluetooth signals and then between of the smartphone to see the potential carriers. And also some country also use like China robots to deliver medical supplies because they want to protect the what you call the touch between people on the pandemic situation. And in Hong Kong, they use something like wristband, the smartphone that can detect the wristband. So people who left their place of quarantine can be detected and can be fined by the authorities. So because of that, we can see how Taiwan and also South Korea, they did not use this kind of a method of a lockdowns to control because they have a technology. The culture in South Korea, the culture in Taiwan, using this kind of a CCTV and monitoring camera are widely used because they have a very bad experience on the MERS COVID MERS virus 10 years ago. So they are very protective, and they have a very good on what they call preparations to counter the COVID. And then also I would like to share something that Malaysia have something like we have a My Sejahtera. It's one app that was enforced and what they call a must for the people in Malaysia. We need to have these apps, and anywhere we go to the public places, to the shopping malls, to the shops, we need to register. We need to use these apps in order to show that we are in a good condition. You see how the technology can be used to use for this kind of movement, monitoring, control. And my organization, World Robotic IoT Association, we are promoting a lot of robotics, data management, how robotics can be used for the sake of the healthcare. In fact, we are also doing something on how we can use medical supply, putting in the apps, and we're promoting the frontliners, the doctors, the nurses, who can do some checking or monitoring people that we are suspecting to have this kind of coronavirus. So I think this is something that we need to learn, to study, to use it because of the new normal that now is a must to us to use it, to learn and to adapt. But we need to discuss a little bit more when we want to talk about this kind of the data protection. Basically, my friends from Europe, from USA, they are against this kind of tech usage because the issues of freedom of movement, and this is the thing that the price that we need to have, right, in order to control, to monitor the pandemic. We need to let go. I don't say that I agree fully on the use of the data, but sometimes government need to do what they need to do, right? Men need to do what men need to do, right? In order to control. Because of that, in Malaysia, we only have less than 200 death cases. Same goes to Vietnam, also less than 100. Same goes to Taiwan. They only have less than 20 death cases. And China, with almost 1 billion people, they can control this kind of pandemic crisis. If you want to compare to Sweden and also Holland, also is very good cases to be studied. They apply some sort that we call as a herd immunity, that they are not putting something on high monitoring measurements to control or to monitor the people by using that everybody need to control by themselves. So they are not following WHO direction, so not so much information that we can get from Sweden and also Holland. I would like to share something like how, because I have some background from Germany. I learned blockchain tech from Germany. Germany has a very good cases on how they combat the pandemic. For example, by using RF 4.0, Germany government, they can easily produce a lot of ventilator, and they also can export. They can donate the ventilator outside from the Germany. For example, they can accept the virus affected people from France, from the neighborhood countries, to be cured, to get some medical treatment in their countries. See how they are very well prepared. Same goes to Vietnam also. They are the best so far in ASEAN, but not so much information we can get. In fact, also Singapore also doing very good on testing the people. For example, South Korea, they can test very fast in terms of virus pandemic, the testing kit is very they have a mass detection, they have a drive-through detection everywhere in the countries.
Mr. Zulkifly,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to cut you
Yeah.
down. You have like a few minutes left.
Okay.
Discuss.
All right. I just want to finish my presentation. So can you see, guys? So things that I think technology is very important in order for us to cure, to control, and to monitor. And this slide is very important, and how we can understand the crisis management cycle on the tech adoption. For example, how we can have a preparedness, and how we can do something on the prediction. Guys, you can you see my slide?
Yes.
Can you see my slide? Yeah.
Yes.
And how we can do some impact assessment. We have the data, we have something on the big data analytics, so we can have an impact assessment, and by that we can do a very fast response. So it happens to Malaysia. The recovery rates in Malaysia is more than 97%. People can recovered from the COVID, and also we also, by using the technology, we can have only by 3 days to have our own so-called hospital. We can also, we like China also, by 3 days we can create a place for quarantine and also medical treatment for COVID only for 3 days, and can fit for more than 5,000 people who affected to the COVID, and then we can go for the recovery and mitigation. And actually my core is on the blockchain technology, and we last month I had some discussion with one professor from Dublin, Ireland. We're talking about encryption solution on the gene chain, how we can put something on genomic information into the data by having universities, hospitals, government, people, and this allows researchers to access potentially millions of genome types among a multitude of variables. So you can see, right, how the data analysis is very important for us to study the genome, and at the end, we can have something on our raw DNA file to have the testing. And again, by having this kind of genomics and blockchain, we can have a very good pure data to be analyzed, and also to be used for the purpose on the cure, and also to get the vaccine. Thank you for to allow me to discuss a little bit on how the tech adoption on combating the pandemic and also crisis. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Very interesting. Your vision is quite futuristic, yet very possible in this generation. As someone coming from the science and tech background, I believe that there are so many possibilities we can take, but at the same time, we have to be really careful with this, right? Before we proceed to the...
I am a human. I'm not a robot. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm a human. Yeah, still human.
Right. Before we proceed to the Q&A, I would like to ask you one thing. How do we improve the technology development in ASEAN countries? I mean, as a Malaysian, we know that most countries like China, Taiwan, and Western countries, especially in Europe, they're going digital, like super digital. And as ASEAN people, how do we cope up with this? You know, in terms of education, like training people and all that.
Who?
I want to clarify this. Yeah, to you.
Thank you very much. It's a very good question. It's about education, and awareness. Because of that, we have our own academy that we created. Along the pandemic situation, we have virtual public universities. We have 70 students, some of them amongst the professors all around the world, from Dubai, from ASEAN countries, and we do a lot of so-called free training and free education on the tech. Every Monday, we have something like blockchain tech and integrity module. On Tuesday, we have something on IF10 modules. On the Wednesday, we discuss about COVID. Thursday on entrepreneurship and digital business, and Friday we talk about tech and integrity. So we create this kind of education movement. We call as a virtual public universities, and also I have my own, we call as a Next Gen Makers Academy. We have a movement that we teach the poor people in the villages that who don't have access to the education or the tech, because basically this kind of a tech education in the city area, in Jakarta, maybe in Kuala Lumpur, right? Maybe in the area, only the city, the big cities area. But we are doing something on how we can get the talents, and we have the model for, we call it as a Next Gen Makers Academy. We have trainers from the universities, fresh graduate universities, to teach villagers. I mean the kids from the village in Malaysia with free, but basically sponsored by some corporate CSR. Then we try, because why? Really, we cannot rely to the government. Government have a lot of problems to settle between them, right? Government have a lot of political issues, a lot of issues of this kind of a governance between their what you call their enemies of the politicians, you know. So what we do, by having our own capacity, we doing for ourselves, our budget. We go to the village as what we use anything that we have to access to the market. So for me, because why? Basically, this talent also are everywhere, and we need to reach people to the get area. And for ASEAN, especially, a lot for example, countries like Singapore, they are very advanced, but less. I think it's very near their neighbor in Vietnam, in Cambodia. There's still people don't have basic education in the school, right? Compare, right? We sometimes in ASEAN, for example, we have this kind of a disparity in terms of education. Country like Singapore is a very high level. Malaysia, maybe we are in the middle. We are following Singapore, but we are not so much left behind. But country in Cambodia, some countries in rural area, in maybe in Laos, right? They have problems on the basic education that I think we need to discuss. We need to do a movement together. And I believe the concept, the movement, the vision by the founder of the idea, Mr. Gugun Gumilar, doing a lot of education and democracy movement is a very powerful movement. I would like to have in anything that I have, I can. And I also followed Alya movement when I could see in I think in the YouTube. I'm sorry, Alya, I'm not stalking you actually, but because suddenly, because you're very famous worldwide, so I could see that you are doing something in the rural area, right? Something like you bring donation, give some hopes to the people, to the village. So people like Alya movement, we need to promote, we need to share to the corporate people. I think Annisa also doing the same thing, and also maybe doing something like that. And I believe we can be the change maker for our country, for our nation, for our people. And as a young generation in the world wide web, that we don't have actually the borders between us. As long as you are human, we are brothers, we are sisters, we are one big family, that we need to help each other, to take care of each other, because nobody can take care of us unless we, our own self, to take care of ourselves. That's all about my points.
So
yeah.
much. Right, thank you so much. How about from Noor? Do you have any ideas on how to develop this in Indonesia, the education of technology? Maybe just a brief explanation.
I think the most very important is to start to the government policy, because the government policy have the strong how the government can provide the funding, and then how the government can provide infrastructure through a ministry, communication and informatics. As we know with that, we have still low literacy in technology and also and internet, because we have the population large in Southeast Asia. So we need to make contribution or distribution infrastructure in technology and internet, because we a lot of the people who live in the rural area that is more challenges, especially at the moment we face the pandemic. So I think the most very important is the role of the government to provide the policy or giving funding, and then provide infrastructure more inclusively. I think that's it.
All right, thank you so much. And from Alya, can you say some brief message?
Okay, I think to wrap it up from my point of view, in technological terms, the government can do something very simple. They can start from utilizing the closest thing something the citizens already have. For example, in Indonesia, we all have ID or KTP. In the terms of e-KTP, in the newest term of it is electronic ID, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. So e-KTP already everyone has. So why not, if we want to generate more income at home to prevent the citizen from coming out of the house and get more corona cases up, make them stay at home, let them do business from home. And by letting them, if you apply with your own e-KTP or e-ID, for example, you can get access to certain skill application or certain kind of video that can help you, guide you, or mentor you throughout how to make your money at home, etc. Just example. Or maybe not electronic ID, maybe from their own telephone numbers, right? From the Ministry of Communications, I think they can also utilize their own policies on how everyone who has a phone number, everyone has a phone number, maybe they can assign for something so that they can generate money or income from their home, so that they don't have to go out. So those kind of things that I think are possible for further discussions and innovation, hopefully, because I'm just so frustrated and also scared. I'm very, very afraid every time I see the news every day. Cases are just coming up, and even people in front of my house or my neighbors, sometimes they don't care anymore and they just let their kids go out, and we don't know if they get corona or not. So let's just keep people at home and let them realize that, hey, I can make money at home in a good way. So if the government can generate policies that enables companies for the companies to easily urge that for the citizens, that would be awesome. So I don't know much about a medical perspective, so I cannot contribute that much. But I know that I work a lot, and a lot of people cannot work right now. So let them work at home, and hopefully the government can support that. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Ali. That's really nice. Annelieke, do you have any message for for ASEAN youth? I know you're from. I know you're in Dublin right now. You're from Europe, so I think you have this really big message for us.
Well, looking from the outsider perspective in, it's always dangerous, of course, but it's not just about what we cannot do. So I loved when Alya, in her introductory speech, she spoke about these entertainers, these musicians, the painters, but also the actors who usually go out, shoot scenes, make a movie or a series, and then make their money, and they're living that way. It's very difficult right now for indeed actors to actually go out on stage because COVID gives restrictions. But the want for television isn't gone. So the question, in my opinion, shouldn't be how can we redirect people into new jobs, but also how can we use the skills that they have and make sure that they can still perform the jobs that we require, because we still want lovely television, we still want to watch a comedy, we still want to watch a documentary. So how can we make these things in a COVID-proof, safe way? And there's actually quite a few people who've been very successful at that, by making, for example, their comedy through webinars. There's a very successful group in Ireland called Foil, Arms and Hog, who've done a lot through a webinar, and where they used to actually create their own small comedy sketches. And they make money through that, because if you have enough followers on social media, you can make money through the ads. So it would actually be very interesting to see as well, how could either government or another agency make and support that type of development where actors can send in their pieces and people can have fresh TV whilst these people still make their normal daily livings.
All right. Thank you so much. I think we can go to the Q&A session right now. And for the participants who are watching this right now, please give us your comments and questions, and we'll try our best to give you the answers coming from our keynote speakers here. Thank you.
Oke. Terima kasih banyak untuk para pemateri yang sudah menyampaikan materinya, luar biasa. Kita semua dan para peserta sangat mendapatkan pelajaran dan wawasan yang luar biasa, bermanfaat sekali bagi kehidupan kita semua. Dan untuk acara selanjutnya yaitu sesi tanya jawab. Oleh karena itu untuk rekan-rekan peserta yang ingin bertanya silahkan, ada dua pilihan. Pertama, rekan-rekan bisa langsung memberikan kode raise hand, kemudian bertanya langsung ke pemateri. Kemudian yang kedua boleh melalui kolom chat di Zoom dan nanti akan dibacakan oleh Firly. Silahkan bagi rekan-rekan yang ingin bertanya.
Okay, is there anyone who wants to ask questions? I think we have one from KJ. I don't know who this question is for, but the question is, do you think technology makes us more human than before? Maybe we can start from Mr. Zulkifly. Maybe you can answer this question.
Thank you. Actually, KJ is my friend from Malaysia. He's a very seasonal, we can say, scientist and also expert in IR 4.0. And always, his question will be a very tough question on the technology. When talking about how technology can, I believe my tagline always, how technology can teach us to be human again. Technology is just a tool, right? When we talk about IR 4.0, for example, people always worry that technology can make other people job loss. But I have another school of thoughts on how technology can be used for the human for the humans capability and humans usage to settle a lot of problems. For example, for us, technology actually can make us closer by having Skype, by having WhatsApp. Before this, in order to talk, if you guys, I'm already old, I'm almost 40 years old. When talk about old technology, we can say 20 years back, in order to talk when I was in school, back to 1990s, I need to write a letter, right? To send, I was in a boarding school that time. So in order to talk to my friend from overseas, I need to write a letter, and a letter will be reached to my friend more than 1 week, for example, right? But now, because of the technology, we can speak at any time to our friend. In fact, we can have this kind of discussion, right? From worldwide. So I think technology, if we can use with the wisdom, we can use with the practical way, we can use in a positive way, it can be make humans more human and more and closer to each other. And again, by having also technology, for example, we can learn, for example, for the healthcare, right? We can learn how we can combat with issues of virus. We can combat the issues of health. We can find a good vaccines to counter a lot of a virus. We can counter a lot of this kind of healthcare problem by using the technology also. Because for me, technology is like a knife. If the knife I give to Annisa or Alya or Anne, Annisa, Alya, and Anne can cook a very tasteful food for me, right? But if I give the knife to the robbers, in Indonesia say perampok, right? Perompak, in Malaysia perompak, in Indonesia perampok. So they will kill people. So it depends on the usage of the people, how to make technology can use for humanity or against the humanity. Same to the robot. People always think that robot can use to be can be used to against us. But at the end, robot don't have soul. Robot then don't have this kind of a decision making, because in AI, in artificial intelligence, you still to put a direction A, B, C, D to the robot to decide, and you give some options for the robot to do decision. So again, the decision made by us that putting options to the robot, whether want to kill, to cook, or to talk, or to walk, or to sleep, right? So that thing, it depends back to the hand of the human. So to answer KJ question, I'm so believe that technology can make human to be real. Technology can help humanity for the sake, for the good of the people, for the good of the humanity, as long the hands of the people who control, monitor, or create the technology, use it for the sake, the good of the human.
All right, thank you
That's
so much.
my
And
answer.
there's one question from Annisa. I'm going to unmute you right now, please. You may start.
I would like to continue the presentation. I mean, it's like how to answer the same question. I think it's a simple how to be more the human than technology, because I think that technology is only system. It's only system, but the human, as well as we have brain, we can afford to think critical thinking, and then we are empathy. So I think that how we can be more efficient or effective than a technology. So we need to critical thinking. We need to have ability to policy making and also ideas. That I think that's enough. The simple question. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Annelieke, that question is actually for you as well. Can you give us some answers?
Hi, yes, thank you for that question. It's a very interesting question. Does technology make us more human or better humans? In response, with my law background, of course, I have two questions. A, what is better, and what does human mean? And that question is very difficult to answer unless you know the definition of human. Now, what I can say on this topic is that there are opportunities for international growth. It's easier to connect to people with a very different culture, and we certainly can create more understanding. But as humans, we also need certain social cues that you can't really see on a webinar. For example, I've been making hand movements that I just realized you cannot see, which makes it very difficult as well to connect. Similarly, we have body language that you cannot see, certain social cues, intonations that are distorted through technology. So it's very, very difficult to really connect on the same level as you do with an actual physical meeting. So yes, there are opportunities, especially international meetings and connecting internationally, but there are certainly challenges when it comes to connecting on an emotional level. Even though we can do a lot, technology still hinders us, which in a physical situation where you'd sit on opposite ends of a table or have a coffee together wouldn't be such limitations.
All right, thank you so much. Next question will be from Nurhalisa Rusmadi. Her question is, I would like to, this is from David Valentino. I would like to ask to Mr. Effendy Zulkifly for the applications created and mentions recently related to crisis management and corona things. Is that application created by government? How would you suggest for us, like indie developers, to market our products for crisis management right on crisis occurs? Also, crisis management application is mostly only needed when the crisis occur. How would you suggest to maintain the application usable in long terms? I think it's supposed to be Hindi or Indonesian. I'm not sure. Maybe for ASEAN people.
So it's a very good question about on the sustainability of the technology. When it comes to technology, sometimes when we go for the advanced or emerging technology, sometimes I don't say that old people or veteran people in the government, sometimes they tend to be a follower rather than to be a leader. I can say that some countries, basically the developed countries, when talk about technology, they don't like to do what they call extensive innovation. But in certain case, like South Korea, I was informed by my colleague, my partner business in South Korea, they mentioned that the first apps that we use to detect or to monitor this kind of apps monitoring for the people who affected to the COVID, not came from government. the first apps came from the 15 years old boys who created the apps in order to monitoring and putting something on what they call monitoring, tracing, and track people who has this kind of COVID. Then after that, thousands of people use it, and at the end, government took it as a part of the government initiative and support the movement. Then government came with a lot of solution, same like what they are doing. Same goes to Malaysia. We have my sifu, my teacher, my mentor on IoT, Dr. Mazlan Abbas, for example. He had his own Discover apps also on the tracking and trace, and now people using and then people people use it massively because they believe that it can be used for the good of people in terms of to counter the COVID, right? So when talk about the sustainability, of course, sometimes because of the passion, people do it, the tech people like me, we are doing for the sake of the people. We are not because we are not doing for the business purpose, for example, right? But at the end, anything on the business, on the tech development, you need to have a people who have a business model, what they call expert, who can put some sustainability value that can be prolonged. The tech can be used to other people, and because of that, sometimes also you need to have this kind of connection. Network is very important. Network is very important to put some element of the tech transfer, the tech and enlightens. But at the same time, we also need to take care of our country, our nation, experts to be part of the movement. So in order to sustain, for me, you need to have a very clear business model. You need to understand. You need to understand from the business perspective, because don't be what you call in Malaysia we say that you're doing something that because you love to do it, but at the end you don't have something like market research. But at the end, in terms of apps that created in order to counter the COVID, is like what I call coincidence. It's like because of the issues of the COVID, people don't have option. They try it because of the situation. Sometimes lucks play a very vital roles for the tech movement. Like Facebook, right? Mark Zuckerberg actually did it because this guy is a nerd. This guy cannot get any girlfriend, very smart. So he used the Facebook to stalk other people, to stalk the beautiful girls in the Harvard. Harvard, right? So this guy is a nerd guy, but at the end became what, because then he brought a lot of people with him, the ecosystem, like business people, strategies. At the end, the solution getting bigger. So I think the patient must be have something added value by having another people. Because of that, we need to have a teamwork. Teamwork consisted of a strategies, business people, and also people who understand the technology. So I hopefully I'm answering your question. But at the end, don't wait for the government. I'm sorry, Annisa, Alya, maybe a little bit I beg for differ opinion on how government can involve. Yes, of course, to have a government is very important, because government with the fund, they can fasten. I mean, they can make faster. Can make fast our movement. But what if the government don't have the budget? What if the government don't have that kind of funding, right? So we cannot wait. We need to go for maybe for overseas, or we need to create our own movement. We need to create a movement. Then we come back to government. They see that okay, now we have a very big ecosystem that we can help with government. But of course, the movement must be big. The movement must have a teamwork movement, and also we need some sort of this kind of clever people that can help us bring us to the next level. And I'm so honored to be part of the Idea Dunia, because I believe Idea Dunia is a bunch of clever, good, and smart people, smart young generation that can help each other, care each other, and also spur the knowledge and also wisdom to the people. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Alya, you would like to answer a question from KJ, and that is, do you think technology makes us more human than before?
Hi. So apologies for jumping in, but I just really like conceptual and philosophical questions. So I feel like I really want to say something here. And I noticed that a lot of the speakers here, they say that this is a difficult question. If I'm not wrong, three of you already said that this is a difficult question. But I think I want to challenge this. I think this is not a question. I think this is just a conceptual term. The question we should be asking is not about, is technology making us more human? Why? Because technology is already a part of humanity. Right now in 2020, technology that we are facing and we're holding right now is laptops, iPhones, right? And then machine guns, right? Internet. But hundreds and years ago, technology is not like that. Technology means the pyramid, arch and bow, that kind of weaponries. Solar system is already technology years ago, and it's already just a part of humanity. So our challenge now as humans is the pandemic. I think we have to shift back again. The focus right now is that we're facing something that the whole world is challenging from. I think I saw a video where every 100 years there's this pandemic going on. Just right now is COVID-19, but 100 years ago it was a different thing. 100 years back it's a different thing. It's a challenge for us to boost and also trigger our tools, our culture, and our technology in order to solve that issue. So technology does not make us human. It's already in humanity. I think that's something that I believe would fit more in my point of view. And so I'd like to continue that to answering the second question from Nur Hikmah, where it seems there's a tendency for students, especially young students, like for example, high school students or even elementary school students who have been taking online classes, they tend to be much more lazy and less punctual and less eager to do their assignments at home because they're doing it online, right? So that's also something that a challenge that we have to think about, and that leads to like a domino effect into other sectors as well. We have to talk about the psychology of the student as well. We have to talk about the upbringing of the student. It's not the fault of technology. I think a lot of people tend to see technology as this big, bad, scary what is it, Terminator kind of machine, when it's actually not. It's just a part of our culture. And it's the similar thing as in back years ago not years ago, but centuries ago, where students have to bring very, very heavy books to school, right? But now, back when I was in high school, we can already bring our laptop or iPads to school, which is lighter, and we can save a lot of e-books there. And it doesn't mean that it makes us lazier. Not really, but it helps us. So it's just that we have to take away our negative assumptions. It doesn't make the student lazier at all. Online classes and everything, it doesn't. What does make it lazier is that how does the kid function at home with the mother, with the father? Does the parent remind them to do the schoolwork? Does the teacher connect with the parents? It doesn't have anything to do with technology. It's about the culture and also the upbringing and the social activities surrounding them. So I guess my bottom line, answering those two questions, I'd like to summarize that technology isn't this big bad machine Terminator that we think. It's just a part of our culture, and we have to embrace it, and we have to utilize it as much as we can to help us further into the future. Like it or not, pandemic or not, we are going to face this. Maybe now that we are having a pandemic, we're making this webinar session earlier. But if we don't have a pandemic, maybe we're already going to do this in the next 20 or 50 years. It's not going to hinder the technology from developing. So we have to embrace it and use it to for our betterment, instead of judging it and having negative assumptions about any kind of technological developments. That's it.
All right, thank you so much. There's another question from Nadia. I'm going to unmute you right now.
Okay, hello everyone. Can you hear me right now? Okay. Hello, my name is Nadia, and a little bit of introduction. I'm one of the co-founders for ADA Indonesia, actually, and it's such a pleasure to attend this webinar and meet all the brilliant speakers right now. And I would like to address this question to all speakers, actually, whoever can answer, regarding the technology built for Corona specifically. For example, in Singapore, as one of the reasons why they have the best or efficient way to actually handle the spread of coronavirus is because they keep track on their people's movement, right? For example, their heart rate, and then when they're leaving the apartment, and so on and so on. And since right now we don't know when is this virus gonna end, do you think is it proper for the government to continue monitoring the people's personal details, such as when they're leaving their houses, or like what grocery stores that they visited, or and so on and so on, and under the umbrella of controlling the spread of the virus? And how would the best way for us as the object of the control group to voice out our concerns to government? I think, yeah, that's the question for me, and please answer for any speakers. Thank you so much.
All right, I think let's go with Annelieke first from her law background. Maybe she has something in her mind.
Yes, so Nadia, thank you for that question. You saw me smiling already. That's not because I find your question funny, but because it's a very, very good question. So first of all, when we look at these tracker apps, it's very dangerous for people. So if we take a step back, Google has published data, what different countries, how people responded to a lockdown. So whether people would leave their house or whether they actually stayed working from home. How does Google know this? Because they can follow your home or your phone and know where you live. Even if you do not tell your tracker app where you live, if you're in the same place for about 8 hours from say 11 to 7 in the morning, odds are that's where you sleep, odds are that's where you live. So you give away a lot of data, and that data can be used for good to prevent the further outbreak of the coronavirus. But the odds are it can also be used for bad, and it's very difficult to see how can we protect that. Not only legally what information should and shouldn't you use, your heart rate. Okay, what if you're watching a scary movie? Does that mean that your heart rate will go up? So does that mean that you have the coronavirus because you have a tendency to watch horror movies? Another issue is, well, the app tells you to do a lot of things, but is often wrong. So for example, a big issue is that if you live in an apartment building, your neighbors who live in different apartments will actually be very close to you, physically speaking. But the odds of them infecting you through the bedroom wall or through your living room wall are very low. So your app might say, well, you've been in close contact for a long time with someone who's very close to you, so please self-isolate. Well, that might be your neighbor who you've not seen in a year, perhaps. So it's very difficult. What does the app actually know? Because the data is too incomplete to give an accurate picture. If you look at my bank records, I eat very unhealthy of what I buy at the supermarket. But that is because I buy my groceries from an actual market where they sell fresh groceries and you still pay in cash there. So an app doesn't really know a lot about you, but they know enough that it can be abused. It's legally very difficult to protect because day one you say, yes, we protect it, we need to stop the spread of the outbreak. Day two, outbreak stop. It's very important information for research, how we can prevent, and then a lot more information is released again. It's almost impossible to really protect that. So it's very difficult from my legal background. I really don't like these type of apps.
All right, thank you so much. That's really interesting. How about Mr. Zulkifly? You want to give it a try?
Well, yeah, very good questions in terms of what we call as the data protection. So against the tag for tracing and tracking. Again, we can say that anything that we put in the social media, a tag will be monitor you. There are no free lunch on the free apps. For example, like your face apps, the TikTok, the things on Instagram, you put all the data on it. You put the data willingly, right? But at the end, you think that it's very fleeting, but at the end, they're doing for business purpose. They are doing something like, we can call that social behavioral studies to understand your thinking method, your buying behavior for the business purpose. Because of that, sometimes when you Google or you search a lot of activities on the morning about, for example, about Louis Vuitton or like bags. Suddenly in the Facebook, you get a lot of bags advertisement, right? So they are doing something on research, but on what extent that we need to understand. In terms of government need to do what they need to do in terms of the safetiness. And we talk about the government actually, the government is a part of the people actually, right? People created the government. That's what I understood. Maybe Anne can teach me more about how we to define the government, right? Government, because of the democracy, because of the election, then they created a form of government to set a policies in order to ensure the safetyness, the what they call the charity, or to well nation, for the healthcare, for example, for the political or social. So at the end, government need to do what government need to do in terms of monitoring, in terms of the emergency things. When it comes to the debt issue, when it comes to the pandemic, we are in a war that invisible enemies that we cannot see. By that, to have the data not to be breached. For example, I asked my friend from South Korea, I asked him, what is your opinion when government doing something on putting the data? They said that we have a lot of enemies. We have a North Korea neighbor, right? So government, people on South Korea, they said, we created the apps, then we contribute to the government. And then people willingly to give the data for the government to monitor against the pandemic, also for their safetyness. Because of that, if you go to South Korea, I've been to most countries in Europe. I've been only in Africa. I didn't go yet. I went, but I went to a lot of almost Europe. There are different thing of thinking methods. People in Europe, in USA, they are always talking about freedom of speech, freedom of movement. They are very open on that. But some countries, the culture is different, the mentality is different, but the movement or the decision made by the government at the right time, right place for their country. So because of that, compared to countries like Western and Eastern, we cannot put the same. We need to compare apple to apple, right? So maybe countries like Western, they have their own type of thinking and suit with their countries. But countries like Taiwan, South Korea, they are doing very good on countering the COVID, for example, right? The deaths numbers very low, and the people not against it, right? If we cannot see any riot, we cannot see any rebellious thing, because people thinks that they need to be monitored to counter. So it's quite for me difficult to answer, but it depends. Because of that, it depends on the government. Government means that the picture of the people. People choose the government. So whatever government that maybe you see as a dictator, control your data, is a government that chose by the people. So we need to respect to the people, to the countries, the government that was chose, that was what you call decided by the voters in the countries. So for me, this thing is quite what you call fragile to talk about the data. But for me, the data on the emergency case, this is my personal view. We need to be monitor. We need to be monitor in order to against the situation of emergencies, that issue, right? So I think government need to do that, whatever they need to do to against the pandemic. It's a part of the crisis management. Because of that, I put the cycle of the crisis management, how we need to have a preparedness, how we can do something like forecast, how we can do some foreseeability on the COVID. So in order to forecast, in order to do something on what you call recovery method, we need to have the data, and the data must come from people. The data must come from the people who involved in the situation. So if everybody in this emergency situation, in a war, for example, right, the people don't follow the instructions from the government, how we want to against the enemy, right? Everyone to have their own mind, their own thinking. At the end, we lost in the war. That's my personal view. I also have a law background. I believe in order government cannot control like dictator for everything in our data, but in certain circumstances we need to be controlled. We need to give a belief to the government that need to counter this kind of the emergency things, right? War must be defined differently within the situation, normal situation. Now we are in the unnormal situation. It's about health issue, it's about death issue, it's about pandemic issues that affect to everybody. So I think we need to respect to the decision made by the government. That that for me, government represent the people on the country. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Annelieke wants to give some feedback. Please, you may state.
Yeah, so Nadia, you asked a very good question. I seriously disagree with my colleague when it comes to government being part of the people. Even when we come to a democracy, it is not a guarantee that the government will act in benefit of the people. First of all, it's about what do the people actually know. So this again comes back to good education. A lot of people are not aware of the risks that that information contains. A lot of people are actually unaware of the risks of identity fraud, even though those risks are high. A lot of people are unaware of the information they give away just by simply presenting in front of this camera and in front of a webinar. There's a lot of risks involved. So first of all, it comes back to education. So just relying on the government is not good enough, because the government can only be checked if the people are 100% aware. Then more importantly than the government, so technically there's a lot of democracies in this world which we wouldn't really call a democracy, because democracy in the end can be utterly abused. One of the great examples, and I'm seriously hoping that I'm not gonna get too many responses on this, but if we look at the United States, they are a democracy, but their main flaw was the rule of law. Their democracy was not that strong within the rule of law. So here comes along a man who is, let's go with interesting, and he tries to bend the laws and the rules wherever he can. And he's largely successful because the rule of law wasn't that strong. So it's not just about crisis, corona, what should the government do? It's what do we put in law? Because law, and especially if we put things into the Constitution, if we look at human rights, these are more strongly protected than just relying on democracy. So I seriously disagree that we should focus on the government as being responsible to the people, because that assumes a lot of things that are usually not true. But rather focus on the rule of law and making sure that we have good, strong rules, and that these rules are enforced, even enforced against the government. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. Annisa, would you like to give some feedback?
Yes, thank you. And recently, like a few months ago, I have joined competitions by Islam Development Bank. It's about grants proposals like the COVID-19 data. So me and my colleges has a phase for the first phase, and then we just waiting on the next for the decision. So it's about the public in Indonesia about the COVID-19. I think I'm agree because we are proposed the solution. So the first thing, there is two problem in Indonesia why the public data in COVID-19, I mean like public data of the COVID-19 still closed, because the first is Indonesia and Singapore. It's different things because Indonesia is a population, I mean it's like populous country, and then they have so many people, and then we are archipelago country, And then if you want to compare with the Singapore is a small country, and then so it's easily government to manage any remote more effectively. And secondly, the problem is about data public. As we know it, that the government is usually just give the society like the chart, flow chart, and then diagram, and then back to data literacy. We don't have mastering what is this flow chart, and everything that the government has shown in the television or news, right? So I think the most very important that this is about how we can encourage the government to be more effectively to giving our policy to data public. Because one example in the Wuhan in the China, why in the China increasingly COVID-19, because the same problem, because there is no public data shown by government. That is.
All right, thank you so much, Annisa. Next, we'll have Alya. Maybe you can have some feedback. Also, there's some questions for Alya as well.
Okay, no feedback. I think that's a brilliant discussion, but I would also like to quote Annelieke on saying democracy can be abused. I agree on that. So I don't have any further opinions on all of that topic. So I think I would like to continue on answering the other question from Ardell about productivity pressure that students are facing on learning at home. Okay, once again, I would like to reiterate that technology is not the bad guy. Again, technology is not the bad guy here. So when we think about the troubles that students face during this period, we have to think about the school. We have to think about how the teacher teaches, because it affects too. And we have to think about the curriculum. So the first step that we have to solve is about the curriculum itself. I see a lot of cases in Indonesia, especially I also have two younger brothers. One brother is he's in college now, and my smallest brother, he's in high school now. So I can see from how they study at home now during the pandemic, they some of them sometimes they have a lot of assignments, sometimes not really, but some of their friends have a lot of assignments as well. And a lot of their friends in other schools, they have a lot of like heaps of assignments that sometimes they cannot sleep, and they can just about to do PowerPoint after PowerPoint after PowerPoint. So what I see here that's lacking is curriculum. The curriculum between the public schools and also the private schools and private college and institutions are not well coordinated. Even before the pandemic, Indonesia is already facing a lot of problems about the curriculum. So this is more of a homework for the Ministry of Education. Hopefully, they realize that once they finally reorganized curriculum and all of the schools are already handing out the assignments and a curriculum in a correct way and not pressuring way to the students, then we have to reevaluate again. If the students are already doing things, if the students who have a lot of pressure, productivity pressure, already see a lot of improvements, they don't face it anymore, then that's good. That means that the problem is solved. But if the student is still facing it, then I think it's probably more towards within the family. What is it that they feel making them pressure a lot? Is it because of the family problems? Because when you study at home, that means there's got to be a lot of parental involvement inside of your education process. And it's different from before we go to school. We learn in the school environment with a teacher, with other students, and with other extracurriculum mentors. It's a different environment. But when you're at home, it's an independent learning system. Well, of course, we log into the lectures from the teachers in the same time with our uniforms. But still, outside of that, we're at home. We're facing our home problems. We're facing our family problems. So I think there's got to be a lot more communication and cooperation between the school's teachers and also the parents of the students. There needs to be a lot more engagement, much more than before, because the students are actually experiencing a lot of their learning process at home instead of at school. So hopefully, to face this productivity pressure, we got to take a look again first on the curriculum. Hopefully the Ministry of Education is doing their homework. And after that, if problems still arise, I think we have to look again on the students' families and the students' social life. Again, I would like to reiterate, it is not the technology's problem. Technology is not a bad guy. So I hope my answer is somewhat reliable. If you can comment again, then welcome. That's all for me.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. Due to time limits, we will stop the Q&A session here. Next, we will have a photo session where all keynote speakers open their video camera, and we will screenshot today's panelist.
Oke, terima kasih banyak untuk para peserta yang sudah bertanya. Kemudian terima kasih banyak juga untuk para pemateri yang sudah menjawab pertanyaannya, luar biasa. Acara selanjutnya yaitu sesi foto bersama, dan di sini ada 2 sesi. Pertama yaitu pemateri terlebih dahulu, dan yang kedua adalah pemateri dengan para peserta, nanti kita foto bersama. Untuk pertama, silahkan kepada para pemateri untuk bersiap foto bersama.
Please close your video camera, participants. Untuk partisipan, ditutup kameranya ya. This is only for panelists, only for keynote speaker.
Untuk para peserta, boleh ditutup dulu kameranya. Untuk pertama yaitu para pemateri terlebih dahulu. Nah, setelah itu kita foto bersama para peserta dan pemateri.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Once more. Wait, sorry. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and we're good. And thank you so much. And maybe for the second session, we have all of the participants together and open their video camera.
Oke, untuk foto yang kedua yaitu foto bersama semua peserta dan pemateri. Silakan kepada para peserta untuk membuka kameranya. Sudah bisa dibuka kameranya, teman-teman?
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Another one. Please wait. Okay. All right, we're good. Thank you. Participants can close your camera now. Okay, the screenshot session is now done. Thank you so much to all of our panelists today, and thank you for everyone for spending your time here with us, IDE Dunia. We hope this webinar can give us a clarity towards technological development for all the youths in ASEAN to lead a better generation.
Oke, terima kasih banyak kepada para pemateri yang sudah menyampaikan materinya, luar biasa, sangat bermanfaat sekali dan banyak sekali pelajaran, wawasan yang kita ambil dari apa-apa yang telah pemateri sampaikan. Kemudian terima kasih juga telah meluangkan waktunya untuk Ide Dunia. Dan terima kasih untuk rekan-rekan peserta yang sudah hadir berpartisipasi di acara ini. Kemudian kita semua mendapatkan ilmu yang bermanfaat. dan luar biasa sangat berharga bagi kehidupan kita semua. Kemudian jangan lupa untuk ikuti sosial media kami, yaitu Instagram Ide Dunia, kemudian di Twitter Ide Dunia, di YouTube juga ada Ide Dunia TV, dan di Facebook ada Institute of Democracy and Education. Bisa diikuti karena kami akan terus menyajikan kegiatan-kegiatan yang sangat bermanfaat, baik dari pendidikan, demokrasi, sosial, budaya, kepemudaan, ekonomi, dan lain-lain. Kalian bisa ikuti sosial media Ide Dunia. This is Natasha from Tunisia.
And I'm Verly from the United States, signing out.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk rekan-rekan semuanya.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.